Welcome everybody to MandoLessons Live, Saturday noontime, and great to see you all here. Got a bunch of familiar faces already. Good to see. We got Denise here. Good to see you. Have Dog Will Travel, Greg, Chad, AC, Go Fish Office, Linda, Dan's Tune, Greg, Vladderman, and Pelican 3. Awesome. Thank you all for joining in. If you're new here, the way these works, pretty informal. It's just kind of an hour of Q&A. Love hearing what people are working on. Happy to take tune requests if I know them and if they're not copyrighted. And yeah, I've been having a good week. I don't know if you've seen it, but well, next week my friend Noah and I are gonna put out a duo mandolin album. Just a quick little 6-track EP. I put out a video yesterday here on the channel. That's been a lot of fun working on with Noah. He's an awesome mandolin player, and he actually plays a bunch of different instruments, and it's always great to play music with him, and we recorded that last fall. That'll be coming out next week. I'm gonna pop out the chat here because I always forget to do that. How do I do that? Oh, there it is. Let's see. Zoom in a little so I can see from a further distance. Ooh, that might be too much. Alright, sorry for the delay. Catch up with the chat here for a second. Hope I'm coming through loud and clear. Alright, Cork, Canada, Ohio, South Carolina, Chicago. Thank you so much, Dan's Tune, for the PayPal donation. I saw that come through. I really appreciate it, and really helps me put out new lessons every week is through support from pickers like you. There's as Dan found out, there's a PayPal link in the description and on my website. There's also, you can become a Patreon member and get access to lessons a day early, free play along track downloads. At $5 a month, you get a patron-only stream kind of like this once a month, which are always a lot of fun. I really get to go a little more in-depth with people, so you can check that out. That said, everything will always be free. All right, we got another. There's also, I had forgotten to mention, but Matthew really reminded me here with a very kind super chat donation, which is the YouTube way of donating. All right, they're coming in strong here with Have Dog Will Travel as well. Thank you so much for all the support. Helps me. I do put out new lessons every single week, so if you're not subscribed over here, give that subscribe button a hit if you want new lessons every week. But I hope everybody is doing well. Got some questions in here already, it looks like. Silver Dagger. That's a great song, also known as Katy Deer. I don't know all the words to that one. I'll play a little melodic version, because I really can't remember the words. Oh, that's a different tune. That's an Ola Belle Reed tune, Undone in Sorrow. I always get these. Oh, there's a couple songs I always get mixed up. If you haven't heard Ola Belle Reed do Undone in Sorrow, one of the most beautiful songs ever. Super sad, but super good, like the best ones are. From the snowy Pacific Northwest, Bob, good to have you here. It is. Yesterday it was like 45 degrees and melting, and then it dropped overnight, and now the roads are just covered in ice here in the Northeast. Manchester, UK. Good to see you, Sean. All right, let's see. Have Dog Will Travel says, having problems with multi-finger chords, so I'm practicing two-finger, two-string chords. Any help with the strum pattern for that? The nice thing about that two-finger, two-string chord idea that you're talking about, which I love, that's my favorite way to play chords, honestly. Whoa, my chat's all jumping around here. The nice thing about that, let me zoom in a little, is, if you've got these little two-finger, for a G chord, I'll often just use open G and 5th fret on the D string, or 4 and 5, all those little double stops. It doesn't really matter. The nice thing about those double stops is you can really be a little more kind of filled out and aggressive with your right hand and still not overwhelm the melody. So you can, whereas if you're playing full chord shapes, like, you really want that to be super rhythmic and leave lots of space. But if you're playing like a two-finger A chord, you can really kind of strum through it. I call it the wooga chucka, for lack of a better word, but you can just do up, down, up, down. Try to give it a little beat, though. Wooga chucka, wooga chucka, wooga chucka. You can also add in a little chop in there by either palm muting or dropping your unused fingers on your left hand, like in this A shape. You something like that, and really kind of experiment with it. Especially, if you're doing two-string chords, you're not going to overwhelm the melody. If you did that with a full G chord, that's going to get loud and it's going to take over the rest of the instruments pretty quick. But if you just do a two-finger G chord, it leaves a lot more space. So you're really a little more wide open with your right hand patterns. And I love two-finger and two-string chords. I do those, I'd say, 90% of the time. Cool, brought in the daffodils. Always a good way to warm up a house. Cool. Denise says, please let us know how and where we can buy the new album. So there's a link. You can pre-order it right now. It'll be coming out next week. There's a link in the description of the video that I posted yesterday. Was it yesterday? Yeah, yesterday. Where it's just going to be a download on Bandcamp. And you can pre-order it now. I think that means you'll get two of the tracks now, but maybe not. I'm not entirely sure how the pre-release, the pre-order works. Noah set that one up. But then next week it'll come out and you'll be able to download it. So you can either get it now or get it next week when it's out. I'll be posting more. We got a couple more videos coming, so you'll see those, and that will there'll be links in those to the album as well. I'm glad people are enjoying that. Oh, chat just jumped. Chad says, I'm a lefty struggling to keep rhythm with my right hand, forcing myself to learn theory, scales, and fretboard, and I never learned much on the guitar despite playing for years, hoping it all comes together. I think it will. You know, there's so much. I think, you know, if you play guitar, you're kind of already have a leg up, which is nice, and, you know, just kind of the idea of having an instrument in your hands is huge, and just getting comfortable with that. You know, I think repetition is your friend at this point. You know, one of the things that I love to do, both for myself and with students, is to, you know, if you feel like you're kind of hit a plateau and you're not getting any better, just take the mandolin, flip it around, and try to play it the other direction. And you might not have as much trouble as with this as I do if you're already a lefty. But if I do this, I can't do anything. I can't even like find my chord shapes. And this is sort of, you know, all as awkward as that feels, that's what it felt like when you picked up your first instrument for the first time. And, you know, just you keep the repetition going. You know, even if you're just like kind of playing drums with your right hand or whatever your picking hand is, you know, that's going to be a huge help, just kind of learning to keep time and be rhythmic. And a good time feel is one of the most important parts of music. I always say it's like 60% right hand, 40% left hand in terms of importance. If you've got a nice strong rhythm, you're good to go, even if your left hand isn't doing anything super complicated. Rob says, hi all from Felixstowe, UK. Just been playing around with the new Old Joe Clark jam track. Cool. I'm glad you're enjoying that. Could we have some baby steps for your amazing rhythm playing? I think sort of I sort of answered a little bit of this already, kind of talking about those 2-finger chords. A lot of what I'm doing there is just, you know, it's not complicated. It's not kind of physically complicated. I'm really just doing it, you know, so like with Old Joe Clark, I might have something like this going. That's just 2nd fret and 2nd fret. I do it as a 1-finger chord. You can get both fingers in there. Some people do that. But you know, and I'm really just playing those bottom 2 strings, getting a nice groove with my right hand. And sometimes I'll kind of play around. It's a little bluesy sort of, and it's also the melody. It's kind of down an octave, but by limiting the number of strings you're playing and the number of fingers you have down, again, you can be a little more inventive. So I'm not doing anything physically too extensive with my left or right hands, but what I'm doing is just I'm changing things up a lot. So, you know, rather than just going, which is totally fine, you know, that's sort of like the bare bones of what's going on there. And then I'm maybe adding in a little more groove with my right hand. And And then you can do a little bit of kind of finger wiggling on the left hand. Ya, da, 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 ya, da, 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 da. So I've got my A chord there, and you can kind of walk up that scale. So you got 2-2, 2-4, and 2-5. You can also do 6-2, 6-4, and 6-5. So you can kind of play the rhythm and the melody at the same time, just kind of down an octave. And it's a 2-chord song, so, you know, get those 2 basic chords of that G, A and the G under your fingers. Kind of then liven up your right hand, get a nice groove going, and then go back to your left hand and say, okay, can I wiggle some fingers around and get a cool sound out of this? I hope that's kind of what you were asking, and hopefully that gives you some thoughts to work with. Vladderman has a question. What mandolin is it that I'm playing? Sounds wonderful. This is a mandolin built by Tom Ellis down in Austin, Texas. It's called an Ellis because it was built by Tom Ellis. I really like it. I've had it for, I think, 10 years now. I think I got it in 2009 from a shop down outside of Boston, Massachusetts. And I love it. I feel very lucky to have it, and this one's not going anywhere anytime soon, because if I had to have one instrument, I think this would be it. Thanks, Skipper, for the constant donation. I see your donations come through, and I always appreciate it. You know, every little bit helps. You know, it all kind of adds up. Even if it's $1, that's totally generous. And you know, a couple of years, that's nothing to sneeze at. That's very generous, and I appreciate all forms of donation, whether it's monetary or that people send me like pics in the mail or just thank you letters. It's all good. I love it all and appreciate it all. So thank you all. Cool. David says, looks like you were having a blast in that video yesterday. Yep, super fun playing with Noah. And that's one of his tunes. It's just super catchy. You know, we were editing that video and working on the album, and that tune would get really stuck in my head in a good way. All right, Rob and Michael, thank you so much for the Super Chat donations coming in. Always appreciate it. Wow, and I am falling behind the chat. I'm going to have to speed up here. David says, can you talk about action and if you have tricks to gauge how high the strings should be? So action is, let me zoom in here. For those who don't know, action is just kind of how high the strings are off of the fretboard. So like a high action would look like that. A low action would look like that. And ideally, you know, you want the strings to be low enough so that you can play anywhere on the fretboard without really pushing down too hard. The first instrument I ever had was a tenor banjo, and I didn't know anything about, banjo mandolin. I didn't know anything about action, so I just kind of played the chords I was working on. And then, you know, a couple years ago, I found that instrument again because a friend of the family had loaned it to me, and I picked it up, and the action was like really wild. It was really quite hard to play, and I was like, wow, that's hard to play. But I didn't know at the time. I was just like, everything hurts my fingers. I've never been playing. I've never played an instrument before, so that just must be what it is, and I built up calluses. But you know, I think so you want it to be low enough to be playing comfortably. Also, if it's too high, you can start to like kind of bend the string by pushing it down, and it'll go out of tune by the time you get to the fret. But you know, low enough to play, but not so low that it's buzzing. I don't know in terms of like a height. I don't know, like for this instrument, you know, I've got a 1.5 millimeter pick, and I can kind of slip it in about here on the instrument. You know, my finger's right in the middle of it there, and it's just barely held in place. If I move it like over the 12th fret, I bet it's going to fall out. Well, not quite, but it's pretty slippery down there. There we go. Right about there, just starts slipping through. I don't know what that's going to mean, so maybe 1.5 millimeters off the top of the 12th fret. Yeah. But I bet you could ask on Mandolin Cafe, and people would be able to tell you kind of more about proper action. But you want it to be comfortable but not buzzy. Yes, David says, will this be posted afterward? Yep, these are always archived. You can come back and watch them anytime. There's even, Denise puts together episode guides and tune lists out of this all, so you can go and search it. So if you go to MandoLessons.com, my website, and you click on the live Q&A button in the upper left-hand corner, you can look at you can kind of sort these things through episode guides, and they're all hyperlinked up, so you can say, oh, old Joe Clark, let's go listen to that. And it'll bring you right to that time spot in the video. Oh, and I used to put that in the description. I should do that again. I've been kind of posting comments to the top of these videos with that in it, and I haven't done that in a while, but I'll go back and put those in. I'll write myself a note here. I'm gonna write it before I forget, because I will forget. Post comment index. Cool. Play some licks using C, F, G, C progression. Yep, so that's a 1, 4, 5, 1 in the key of C. I'll just do, let's see. So here's our C, F, G, and C. Something nice you can do. So here's our C, F, G, back to C. And that's just using this little shape of 2, 3, and then 3, 5, and 5, 7 in our C chord. You can do the same thing on the G and D strings for F. And then I'm going for that G chord, I'm just moving this shape, that 5, 7 for the F, up 2 frets to create a G double stop. And then you're going 4, 5, 5, 7, 7, 9. So you got slide up 2. Something like that. I love doing that sort of stuff. It's very melodic. So it's a really nice combination of kind of a little bit of melody, but a lot of chord and double stop sounds. I love that kind of stuff. You can do that in all the keys. You know, it's just that 2-finger kind of lick stuff that I love. So give that stuff a try. Rob says, I also played guitar. I found the mandolin much easier. Yeah, mandolin was my first instrument, but kind of trying to play guitar after playing mandolin, I was like, wow, I got to use like all my... This thing's got 6 strings and I only have 4 fingers. How's this supposed to work? Can I do a Mando lessons on licks? Yeah, I've thought about that in the past. I probably will do one at some point. I personally am not like super well versed, and I don't particularly think musically in licks so much as in like melodic ideas, because I really am like most versed in fiddle tunes. But there are a lot of licks, and I do know some from the time that I played bluegrass more often. So yeah, I've definitely thought about that sort of thing, and I should put a couple of those together. Yeah. Let's see. You already did it. Occasions during fast picking where I'll go farther up the neck and stay on the same string rather than go to different strings. Just smoother and easier for me. Not necessarily. Recovering bassist says, like, sometimes I'll just move up the neck and stay on the same string rather than go to a different string. No, I'd say, you know, if it's comfortable for you and it sounds good and it's not sounding like you're making all these big jumps, you know, like kind of what I was doing right there. I could do... Oops. You know, stay in one spot, but I really like that sound of, you can do the slides, get a little like kind of that slippery sound. Level Up Frez says I bought the Kentucky KM 150. Oh, KM 505, awesome, and it's really good. Yeah, those are very nice instruments. You've done good there. Cool, Lewis. Glad you enjoyed the video. So he says, Lewis says, who did the camera work? That's our friend Jamie Oshima. You can, if you click in the comments of that, or sorry, the description of that video, he's an amazing local musician who plays like every instrument ever. He's got a kind of a more kind of, I would say, leaning towards pop music, but great band with his brother, the Oshima Brother Band. Check him out. There's a link in the description of my video. It says camera work by Jamie Oshima, and then there's a link to his YouTube channel where he's got a bunch of great videos. Super creative guy of many talents. I recommend checking him out. Checking him out. Just gonna catch up with the chat here because I'm falling behind. Cool, glad you're enjoying it. You're taking... Apologies that I can't pronounce your name properly, probably. Super. Hey, who is from Norway here? Level Up Fred. Glad to have you all the way from Norway. Michael says, when you're going to a jam, how many tunes do you typically have to bring to try out? 5, 10? How do you keep them all straight? I usually like going to a jam and just sort of not I love sort of hearing what other people are playing at this point. You know, I'd say you can definitely go with a couple. It depends on whether it's, I think, like kind of going to the jam and seeing how it works. Sometimes they'll be like kind of pass it in a circle, and if it goes around the circle 5 times, you might need 5 tunes to recommend, but you can always say pass, and there's no one's gonna mind if you say like, oh, not this time, I'll pass on picking one. Or sometimes it's more informal, just like with whoever thinks of one. Occasionally it's just sort of like a session leader will start all the tunes or all the songs. Just kind of, I'd say go for the first time and sort of see what it looks like. See how often people are, you know, you don't want to like be starting every one. You gotta let everybody else have a chance too. But I think it can depend on the session, kind of how fast things are going through, how long it is. You know, I would be hard pressed to try out like 5 new songs every week or every month. It'd be a lot for me. I don't learn them that quick at this point. How do you keep them all straight? I think the way I keep them all straight is I just rely on my fingers and kind of the muscle memory. At this point, I'm mostly going to like Irish and old time sessions. So all instrumental, and my fingers know a lot more of the tunes than my brain knows the names to them. Or like how to start them. So somebody will start a tune, I'll be like, oh yeah, I know that tune, or I know like 50% of that tune, and maybe by the end I know 51%. Just kind of work at it a little at a time like that. So I kind of rely on other people starting tunes, and then my fingers hopefully will catch up eventually. Half our time tuning and half the time playing out of tune. That's the truth. Level Up Fred, but hopefully not too out of tune. Oh, thank you, Denise. That is correct. This is episode 43. I forgot to change. Oh, okay. Now, yeah, I was running a little behind, so I never actually, I never updated the thumbnail. That's why you were asking at the beginning. I was like, oh no, I'll be here. I was running a little behind, so I didn't have a chance to change the thumbnail. Totally forgot about it this time. I'll get in there and fix it up after the thing. But thank you for pointing that out. Running a little behind. Uncle Bobby says, got your I'm assuming Mandos, though it says mangoes, at about 1.3 millimeters. That's the size of the pick I use. Yeah, that seems like maybe a good way to go. Andrew, thank you so much for the Super Chat donation. Glad you enjoyed the new video yesterday. I think that's the first time I've ever posted a like non-MandoLessons video, or like MandoLessons specific. I do want to make lessons for all of those tunes, or most of the tunes anyway, on the album, because there's some great ones Noah's got. I think, let's see, I think I've already done one. Well, I don't know. I can't remember if I've done a lesson for Cosmo's Flight, my tune. If not, I'll do one at some point here. But there might already be some on the album that are up, but I'll do some of the other ones as well. Flowers of Edinburgh. great tune that I can't remember how it goes. I'll see if that one pops into my head later on here. Thank you, Uncle Bobby, for the super chat donation. Sean says, I'm working on Donald Blue, Wedding, and Teetotaler Temperance reels. I've been hitting the jigs too much. Do you have any of those reels and the tips of your playing, or tips for playing Irish reels in general? I mean, I think one thing that I love to hear, like everybody plays Irish tunes a little different. I love to hear, to kind of work on keeping, maybe take an edge off of the speed. If I can like comfortably play at like 120 beats per minute, I like to bring it down to like 110, but also kind of make sure that I'm really keeping a good groove. So if I've got a tune, rather than playing it like, let's see, gotta get that back up in front here. Rather than playing something like that, that's about the max speed that I would comfortably play it at. Take it down just a couple notches. As in tune as I was when I started here. But yeah, just like kind of taking that tune, slowing it down a little bit, giving it a little bit more wooga chugga, a little bit more of kind of a groove to it. Also frees up space for double stops and variation, things like that. That's a little harder to grab onto when you're playing at your max speed. And I think good enough for now. Hard to tune and talk at the same time. I think there's a lot to be said for kind of not, at least in like when you're like, it's definitely good to work on playing faster. It's a good skill to work on, but also, I think it's a lot easier to work on all the other stuff, like good technique and double stops and variations, things like that, when you're really dialed back from your top speed a couple notes. And I also, I prefer 95% of the time to play like on the slower side. I'll start, in like the Irish session that I go to, I usually start tunes a little slower than most other people, just because that's kind of like the speed that I like to go. I would rather play whereas, maybe the kind of average speed of my session would be closer to like just a little bit faster, but I love kind of taking the edge off of the speed and replacing it with a little bit more swing. That's totally my personal preference. I also love kind of ripping through tunes fast. Super fun, but a little more stressful for me personally. And I can't think of any of those tunes. Oh, Wedding Reel, I bet I can play. Does it do that? I think it does. I always get that. I know another tune called Once in a Blue Moose that starts the same way. But it goes down. Oh, that's a great Nile Valley tune on the Valley Brothers album Cowan Bridge. Let's see. If I'm in a jam, where did that one go? It just jumped as I started reading it. The Pelican says, if I'm in a jam session and they're playing a tune too fast, then I'm used to practicing it. I don't take a break till I get even faster at it. Is that the right way to do it? Let me just make sure I'm getting your question right. You know, I think, so I guess in the answer to your question is like, if it's going too fast, should you take a break? I would say don't hesitate. You know, I think there's something to be said. You know, it might be going too fast for you and you might stumble a little bit, but it's kind of a moment to try anyway. The nice thing about like playing in a jam and playing music in general that I've always appreciated as like an art form is it's art over time. You know, I'm terrified of like visual art because I like put a line on a piece of paper and it's stuck there, and like I have to look at that line for the rest of time. Whereas, you know, if I'm playing a tune, you play something weird, like oops, totally fumbled, totally lost the spot, you know, played a bunch of clams, but 3 seconds later you've moved on. Everybody else has forgotten about it too. You probably heard your own mistakes 300 times louder than anyone else did. So I'd say in some senses, you know, just go for it. But that said, if it's like really uncomfortable for you, don't worry about it too much. You're always, it's kind of like the culture is just kind of do whatever you feel like doing. If you want to go for it and, you know, just play whatever. I mean, sometimes if I'll take a break, that if I'm on a tune that's like really fast, you know, something just going like, it's like, okay, I'm gonna take a break over this, huh? Okay, here we go. You know, it's like mostly just double stops and trying to keep my right hand going fast. But by kind of like playing those punchy double stops, it does kind of cut above the rest of the ensemble, and it'll sound like a solo even though you're not going. That's like too fast for me to play melody, so I'll just kind of play double stop solo, so you can kind of take down the number of notes, or you can even like you know, it's fast, but you're just kind of cutting out a bunch of the notes and creating little rhythmic bursts. June Apple. Yeah, I can play that tune, I think. I always forget how this one goes. There it is. I should take a little bite of me. There's a little June apple. Glad I got that one back. I was looking dire in my brain for a second there when I couldn't remember how it started. I'm pretty sure there's a lesson for that one on my website if anyone wants to learn that one. Alright, just joining in, can you give a brief explanation of how to find double stops quickly? Sorry if it's been covered already. There's a couple ways. One is you can use music theory, which is, there's other ways, so if you're not into music theory, no problem. But you can take the root, third, and fifth of a chord, or an arpeggio. So like in the key of A, you have an A, a C sharp, and an E. And just find different combinations. A and C sharp. A and E. E and A, E and C sharp, low E and C sharp. Find them on different spots. Another thing you can do is take any chord shape that you know and just play 2 strings and forget about the other 2. So if you have like this A shape, 2, 2, 4, 5, I'll zoom in a little. You've got a bunch of double stops right under your fingers already. The 4 and 5 on their own, or the 2 and 4, middle 2 strings, or the low 2 strings, 2 and 2. Or you can do, I don't know if you call them a triple stop, but the D, A, and E strings with that chord shape, or the G, D, and A strings, kind of three string double stops, if that's such a thing exists. And it does now, I guess. Turkey in the straw, I could probably do that. Brabant, apologies again. I know you told me how to say your name last time. I appreciate the super chat donation. If you tell me how to say your screen name, I'll try next time, but I warn you, my memory is terrible. But I do appreciate the super chat donation all the same. Simone says, I play guitar and banjo, but also having a blast on the mandolin. Might be overdoing it a little. A really cramped up left wrist and thumb. Any exercises to loosen it up? Yeah, you know, there's a lot of stretching you can do. Kind of go sideways a little bit, but kind of taking your hand, stretching it out this way, stretching it out down, going upside down. You know, kind of all these ways. You can pull on your wrist a little bit. This is all gentle too. You know, don't hurt yourself. You can pull your arm out as you go. Down. Maybe I should do a lesson on nice musician stretches. You know, you can just kind of pull gently on your fingers a little bit. You know, bend them all a little this way and that. Stretch them out this way. You know, just kind of find those. A big one for me is kind of massaging just kind of this spot right in here, especially for me on my right hand. I feel like there's a lot of built up like muscle knots in there, so I could spend a long time just kind of massaging in that spot. Again, don't overdo it. Be sure to do little at a time. You don't want to overdo stretches as much as you don't want to overdo playing. And I think beyond that, go back to the beginner series on my website, especially if you haven't seen the updated beginner series, which is now there. That first lesson, I have a bunch of different thoughts on kind of how to create full body, good technique to really keep yourself nice and relaxed, and kind of getting to that relaxed point, seeing what it feels like, getting back into playing. You're going to tense up, but then every 60 seconds or 5 minutes or whatever it is, just kind of take a break, shake out your shoulders, shake out your hands, get back to a nice relaxed position, go for it again. Sally Goodin, I can never remember how that one goes. We'll do Turkey in the Straw. Maybe I can get Sally Goodin in there too. Let's see. fancy. Got a little minor there at the end just because I'm feeling goofy. Sally Goodin. Jumping all around. There it is, a little bit of Sally, some kind of Sally Goodin anyway. Go Fish has a great question. Do you have any tips or references on how to start a band with different instruments? Just an amateur fun thing I want to do. I would say, you know, everybody's going to kind of know how to do their thing and just start out and, you know, be like, hey, let's all play. Don't worry about too much about kind of what happens. I think creating a band takes time and experimentation. So, you know, let everybody do what they're most comfortable with, and that's usually the best way to get a good sound is just kind of have everybody play to their strengths. You know, if you're going for a particular sound, you can have everybody, you know, if you want to start a real straight-ahead bluegrass band, have everybody listen to a bunch of real straight-ahead bluegrass and kind of match those roles with their particular instrument, and that'll give you that sound. But, you know, I'd say have fun. I think the most successful way to have a band, have fun, you know, do what you love, play how you want to play, and it'll sound good. And it'll be distinctive. If everybody's doing their own thing and listening to each other at the same time, it's going to sound good and it's going to be fun. And that is a recipe for success. Harry says, would love to know what you think of the more modern stuff like Jesse Stewart trying to break down his song Siren's Call. Oh, I've heard of that guy. I don't know much about it. Say, you know, any way people want to you know, the more mandolin the better. So I don't have anything against modern or new age or poppy or anything. It's all good in my book. But I don't know that particular song. Rob says if I'm playing fiddle tunes, I have to slow down for the fiddle players. Yeah. Yeah, there's fiddle, you got a lot more kind of physicality going on the fiddle sometimes, so it can be easier, especially, you know, you're just kind of right here with the mandolin and fiddle, you got more kind of right arm physicality. Ray says I'm a beginner. Whoops, and my chat jumped. Where'd it go? Oh man, I gotta catch up here. I'm a beginner on mandolin. What picks do you like and recommend? What make and model of your mandolin? Just bought an Eastman 305 A model. You've got a great mandolin right there. I like, you know, I'd say what I always tell people is buy a bunch of different picks, try them out, you know, get some big triangular thick ones, get some skinny little thin guitar shaped ones, You know, just get a bunch and see what you like the sound of best and what feels most comfortable to you. For this particular mandolin, I like a big, thick triangle pick. This is a Dunlop Prime Tone 1.5. There's links. I have a link in my description to some of the gear that I use. I'm not sponsored by anyone, but I do have Amazon affiliate links. So if you buy stuff through the Amazon link or my kit page, I'll get a small percentage, but at no cost to you. It's just kind of through the Amazon system. You're not paying anything for clicking on my links extra. What make of model is my mandolin? This is an Ellis, built by Tom Ellis in Austin, Texas. But that Eastman 305 is a great mandolin. You can get a lot of usage out of that. Michael says, when you play Pig's Foot, how often are you working the open G string into the strumming dash melody? I'll do both. That's the whole time. Now I'll do it in like a pulse. Or none at all. Or a little of everything. Or a little syncopation. I would say experiment with it. You know, do a lot of that G string, do almost none of that G string. Try doing it kind of on a regular time. Try adding it in just at little arrhythmic punches. See what works for you and what you like the sound of best. Skipper says, I have an Eastman MD 315. Yeah, another great mandolin. Man of Constant Sparrow. Man of Constant Sorrow, up to speed, sure. How do you play other chop chords than C, D, and G? Also you're going to Joe Val. Awesome. I have never been to Joe Val, but I would love to go some year. You can just take that G chop chord that you know, whether it's and then you can just slide it up. So G, G sharp, A, B flat, B, C, C sharp, D, D flat, E flat rather, E, etc. Up and up and up, F, F sharp, G. But it doesn't make sense to be doing that way up here. So you can also take that C chord and move that up, and you're just not going to play the E string. C sharp, D, E flat, E, F, F sharp, G. So you've got G there and there. So now you got some options. Same thing works for those bar shapes. It's the great thing about the mandolin. Once you note in one spot, you can just slide it all around and get every other one. Uncle Bobby says, fast breaks. Check out a young group, Crying Uncle, cover Grisman's EMD. Blistering. Cool, I have to check that out. Do a little bit of Man of Constant Sorrow. Up to speed. All my days, I bid farewell to old Kentucky, place where I was born and raised, place where he was born and raised. bit of that anyway. Maybe a little too fast for my brain at this point. All right, I am getting to the end of the thing, and I've still got a bunch of chat I'm gonna bust through. Someone can remind me what tune we're supposed to do together today. We can jump into that, because I know we talked about it last week, but I can't remember, and I'll try to answer some of these last questions. Anybody else going to Gainsborough Festival? Hopefully you can find some folks there. Brabon, thank you for the pronunciation. I'll try to remember that, but no promises. Cool. Kevin's loving the play-along tracks, learning the dulcimer. That's very cool. I love the dulcimer. Something on the trombone. I'm not a trombone player, unfortunately. That's my girlfriend's. But I love the sound of the trombone. But I don't know how to make even a note on it. TromboneLessons.com. I'll see what I can do. Maybe a winter project if it gets cold and dark. Okay, thank you, Denise. You're already ahead of me. Arkansas Traveler. So let's all get our instruments out and tuned up and play a little Arkansas Traveler. We'll pass the melody back and forth. I'll play the melody while you play the chords. You play the melody while I play the chords. If you already know the tune, you can work on some adding double stops and a little bit of improvisation. If you don't know the tune yet, you can just try to pick up little bits of it as we go along. These are always super fun. We'll jump into that once I get these last couple questions answered. Cool, James just discovered this site a couple weeks ago. Glad you're enjoying the lessons, James. Fender Heavies. Is there a pick recommendation? Yep, I've got a bunch of those. I love them. Blue chips. Blue chips are great. They're expensive, but they're great picks. Primetone 1.3, but experimenting with a 1.14. Yeah, everybody likes something a little different, so try it all. Cool. Arkansas. So yeah, let's do a little bit of Arkansas Traveler. Key of D. Lessons on my website if you want to do this tune. If you want to learn this tune at a later date, then you can come back and play along with the archived version of this once it gets put up, which would be shortly after this stream is over. But Arkansas Traveler, how does this tune go? Maybe somewhere around there. The B part always goes a little faster than the A part, so I always started out too fast. So 1, 2, here you play the chords. D. Oh no, broke a string. Keep playing. That's why you got 2 of each. You take the melody. I'll play chords. B. I'll take the melody, you play chords. B. take it. A2. B. B2. Let's both play the melody. Going out. There we have it. A little bit of Arkansas Traveler. Great tune. I always enjoy doing those. Thanks for joining with me. And as Have Dog Will Travel pointed out, next week the tune is Liberty, another classic tune. It's on my website. If you don't know it already, go learn it and work on it for next week. That's going to do it for this week's live session. Thank you all for joining in, tuning in, playing some tunes with me, and having great questions. Keep up the good work. Have a great weekend, and I will see you next time. Alrighty, bye-bye.